I was in my little blue house on Maple Street in Harbor City, California, United States, counting the hours before my wedding. My dress hung from the closet door, smooth and bright. My diamond necklace, my only heirloom, rested in a velvet box on the dresser. I had saved for years and paid $18,000 for it, one quiet paycheck at a time. Each stone felt like a small promise to the woman I wanted to be. I wiped the counter, checked the list, and breathed slowly, as if steady air could hold the day in place. Near sunset, my parents, Linda and Robert, knocked once and stepped inside. Their smiles were thin, like tape that could peel away without warning. We sat at the kitchen table. I poured coffee, even though my hands shook. They asked if I was sure. I said yes. I said I trusted myself. I said I loved Ethan, and not because he was the billionaire mayor, but because I felt safe and seen when he was near. My mother frowned at my ring. My father stared at the floor and said I was walking into a storm. I tried to change the air. I told them about the house Ethan and I had picked out, the one with the lemon tree and the small study where I could write. I said we would start simple. I would keep my job at the library because I liked the work and the people. Money was not the point, but yes, dollars could help us help others. My mother pushed her cup away and said I was playing house. My father said there were things I did not understand. The room felt tight, as if the walls leaned in. They left when the streetlights clicked on. I watched the dark gather across the roofs and told myself to sleep early. Grace, my neighbor, waved from her porch and called, "Good night, bride." I smiled and tried to mean it. I walked back to my room to check my necklace, the way a child checks that a door is locked. The frame around the door was splintered. The knob turned too far, then stuck. I pushed hard. The door scraped open with a slow, ugly sound that made my skin crawl and my heart thud. My dress lay on the floor, black with ash, as if night had fallen and settled only on that white. The room smelled like smoke and hot metal. The velvet box on the dresser was open and empty, a small dark mouth. On the bed, there was a white envelope. My name was written in my mother's neat hand. Inside was a single line, pressed hard enough to dent the paper. "You won't get married now, let's see how you do." For a moment, the world went silent, and then I heard my own breathing turn sharp and fast. I called Grace. She answered on the first ring. "They took the necklace," I said. "They burned the dress." She said, "I'm coming." 2 minutes later, she was at my door, soft eyes, firm voice. She called my best friend, Sophia, and put her on speaker. Sophia said, "They posted a photo at the airport. They're flying to Hawaii." I sat on the bed. The letter shook in my hand. Grace opened the windows, and the night air pushed in, clean and cold. We lifted the dress together, and it broke apart in our hands like burnt paper. The phone began to buzz with messages from numbers I did not know. People in the city had heard rumors. When you are about to marry a mayor, private pain becomes public guesswork. I turned the phone face down. Grace brought me water. Sophia said, "I will meet you at dawn, and we will fix what we can." I washed the ash from my palms and watched the water run gray. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman with smoke in her hair and a hard, bright look in her eyes. I decided to be her on purpose. Ethan arrived after the last bus passed. He stepped into the room and understood at once. He did not raise his voice. He did not curse my parents. He held out his hand. In the car, he had a plain white dress, simple and strong, bought in a hurry from a late-night shop he knew. He also brought a typed note and a pen. It listed stores and the reward he planned to offer, $5,000 for any lead on my necklace. "We will get married tomorrow," he said. "We will not let this become the story of our lives." I believed him because I believed myself. I believed in the house that waited for us and in the city that was ours. I thought of the lemon tree, the wide front steps, and the morning sun on the wall by the stairs. I thought of the girls I tutor at the library and how their eyes light up when a book opens a door. If I could teach them one thing, it would be this: your life belongs to you. I wrote a note for the fridge. You can do hard things. Tomorrow I will marry.
Tonight, I chose to keep going.
I set my phone to silent and locked the back door against the dark, then turned toward morning. At dawn, Sophia pulled up to my little blue house on Maple Street and leaned on the horn like a drumbeat for courage. I stepped outside with my hair pinned back and my hands steady, even though my heart felt like loose glass. The sky over Harbor City, California, United States of America, was pale and soft, like a clean sheet. We did not talk much at first. Sophia reached across the console and squeezed my fingers. "We're going to make this work," she said. I nodded and watched the houses slide by. The porches, the lawns, the sleeping dogs, thinking how, by night, I would come home to this same street as a married woman. I held that thought as a kind of light and carried it with me. The small boutique downtown glowed with its sign half on. The owner, a kind woman named Barbara, had come early for us. She listened as I told her about the burned dress, the empty velvet box, and the letter that still scratched at my mind. She did not gasp or pity me. She only said, "I have you," and moved like a quiet storm through racks of white. In 10 minutes, she had a dress over my head, smooth and honest, with a strong line and a clear waist. The price tag said $950. I paid with my card, and Barbara slipped the receipt into a small envelope and said, "This is yours." She stitched the hem while I stood on a small wooden box and tried to breathe. When she gave me a plain veil and refused to charge extra, I almost cried again, but this time in a good way. By 8 o'clock, Sophia and I drove toward City Hall. The road felt new, as if someone had washed it during the night. Crowds lined the steps, neighbors, city workers, people who loved a story, along with cameras and microphones. The note my parents wrote had leaked, and the day had become a kind of public square. Ethan met me at the curb. He did not ask if I was all right. He simply took my hands and made a small shelter with his body and his breath. "We'll fix the rest later," he said. Jacob, his head of security, gave him a nod that meant everything was under control. I could hear the hum of a broadcast van and a bell across the street that rang the hour like a promise. Inside, the air was cool and clean. Judge Martin Hale, a calm man with gray hair and kind eyes, stood ready in his robe. He said we would keep it simple. Our friends formed 2 short rows. Grace took the aisle seat with a bunch of daisies she must have cut from her yard. I thought of the city that had carried me, the house that waited for us, and the life we were building one true step at a time. When the judge asked if I was ready, I said yes. When he asked Ethan, he said yes with a voice that made me feel steady from the floor to the crown of my head. A local station from Los Angeles aired it live, and by noon, the clips were playing across America and even on a morning show in Europe. I did not think about the reach then. I only watched the man I loved and tried to speak each word as if it were a key. When I said "I do," the bells outside rang again. Cameras clicked, but they sounded far away, like rain on a roof. I didn't mind. Ethan set the ring on my finger as if he were placing a star where it was meant to be. The judge smiled, said the words, and everyone clapped, quick and warm. We kissed, and somewhere in the back, I heard Sophia cheer. Barbara, who had slipped in after closing her shop, gave me a little nod, the kind you trade with someone who has done you a quiet good. For a breath, I forgot the smoke, the ash, the empty velvet box. For a breath, there was only light and the simple fact of our vows standing upright in the middle of the day. After the vows, Ethan squeezed my palm. "Your necklace," he said. "We'll search every pawn shop from here to New York City if we have to." He had already offered a $5,000 reward and printed flyers for the precincts and the shops. Reporters called out questions. I stepped to the microphones and said I was grateful that a wedding is not a dress or a jewel, that a wedding is 2 people making a promise and a city witnessing that promise. I said I trusted the police, and I trusted time, and I trusted what was good to rise. A woman from a national channel asked if I would forgive the people who hurt me. I said forgiveness and trust are not the same thing, and today I was building a life where both would be chosen with care. We slipped out a side door and walked 2 blocks to a small diner with red stools and a chalkboard menu. The server, a man named Daniel with a soft laugh, set down grilled cheese and 2 coffees without taking an order. "On the house," he said. Ethan pressed a $20 under the salt shaker anyway, and I added $4 because I liked the clean math of it. We ate slowly and quietly, legs touching under the table, rings catching the light. We talked about the house on Cliffview Road, the one that looked over the harbor. We said we would change the locks today, plant a lemon tree next month, and save for an oak table long enough for neighbors and friends. I told him I wanted a study with shelves to the ceiling and a lamp that made a circle of gold on the desk. When we returned to City Hall for photos, Grace met us with a small paper bag. Inside was a hand towel with "home" stitched on it in blue thread. "For the new house," she said. "For luck." We took pictures on the steps, me in my $950 dress, Ethan in his dark suit, Sophia base laughing, Jacob trying not to smile and failing. The bells rang one more time, and a little boy on a scooter shouted, "Congratulations," like he had been waiting all morning to say it. The sun climbed higher, and the day felt like it had opened its hands. By afternoon, clips of our vows played again on television. We watched a short segment in the City Hall lobby, 2 minutes of calm words and a clear kiss. The anchor said something about love standing up to trouble, and for once, the line did not sound cheap. We turned the screen off and stood still together. The world could say what it wanted. The story was ours. I thought of the diamond necklace and felt both the loss and the hope, like twin birds in the same chest. We walked out into the bright street, toward the car, toward the house that would soon be ours for real, and I told myself again, I am married, I am safe, and I am ready for the life we will build, step by steady step. By evening on our wedding day, my phone filled with messages like rain filling a gutter. News clips of our vows rolled again on local TV in Harbor City, California, and then on shows across America, and even a channel in Europe. Strangers sent kind notes. A woman from Ohio wrote that she cried at her kitchen table. A student from New York City said she wanted to be brave like me. In the middle of all that light, the darker notes came from the 2 people who should have loved me best. Linda wrote, "We made a mistake. Come talk." Robert called over and over until the missed calls stacked like a ladder I did not want to climb. I set the phone face down on the counter and breathed. The smell of smoke from the burned dress still seemed to cling to me, even after a long shower. The texts kept coming. They said the trip had been planned. They said they were only trying to stop a disaster. They said the necklace was just a thing, and they would make it right. I looked at the paper that had sat on my bed the night before. "You won't get married now, let's see how you do," and felt the words cut all over again. I remembered the empty velvet box. I remembered my hands black with ash. I remembered myself saying, "I do anyway," voice steady, chin up, as if I were laying a clean board over a broken place. Ethan watched me read and reread the messages. He did not tell me what to feel. He just said, "We will decide what protects your peace, and that is what we will do." We drove to the house on Cliffview Road at first light the next morning. The harbor looked like a silver plate, and the gulls ran along the pier like small white boats. A locksmith met us at the gate and changed every lock for $320. Ethan added a small keypad and told Jacob, our security chief, to update the camera plan. I taped a handwritten sign near the bell. No uninvited guests. Grace showed up with grocery bags, bread, milk, tea, honey, and a lemon sapling wrapped in paper. "For the yard," she said, "for new roots." I tucked the receipt for the locksmith into a folder labeled house, along with a list of small costs that felt like bricks. $12 for hooks by the door, $8 for coffee from the diner, $45 for plain doormat. The small choices steadied me. They came before noon, pushing past the open gate, as if the sign were a joke. Linda's face was pale, her lipstick bright and wrong for morning. Robert's eyes were hard and jumpy, like he wanted to be angry and sorry at the same time. I held the front door mostly shut, so the cool air stayed inside. Jacob stood off to my right, quiet and watchful. Ethan stood behind me, a firm shape I could lean on if I needed to. "We made a mistake," Linda said. "We were scared for you." She reached for my hand the way you reach for a light switch in the dark. I did not move closer. I held the letter up instead. You left this on my bed, I said. You burned my dress and stole my necklace the day before my wedding. Robert pulled a money clip from his pocket and thumbed out bills. We'll replace the necklace, he said, like he was closing a tab. $2,000 now, and more when we get back from our trip. I stared at the cash as if it were a prop in a bad play. The necklace cost $18,000, I said, but it isn't about the price. My voice surprised me with how even it was. It was about respect. It was about trust. Linda pressed her hand to her mouth. She said they had only wanted to slow me down. She said the dress had been a symbol, as if that softened the smoke that had filled my room. I told them a symbol cannot bruise your life unless someone chooses to swing it like a hammer. Robert shifted his weight and tried a new angle. He said people were talking and that my being on TV made them look cruel. He said I could help fix that if I stepped outside with them for a picture. You can tell them we've worked it out, he said. The words made me colder than the morning air. I will not let my face be used to clean up the mess you made, I said. Jacob took a small step forward. Then, not big, but enough to remind everyone that a line had been drawn. I told my parents that they could leave a written apology, they could mail the key if they had one, and they could send any information they had about the necklace to the police. I said they were not welcome inside. I said forgiveness is a choice, and trust is an account, and right now that account was overdrawn. For a moment, no one spoke. A gull cried high and thin over the water. Linda lowered her eyes. Robert slid the cash back into the clip, like a man putting away a tool that failed. You're making a mistake, he said, but his voice had lost its push. I did not answer him. I had already chosen my world. I closed the door, slow and firm, the latch catching with a soft click that sounded like a full sentence. I leaned my forehead against the wood for one breath, then lifted my head and walked back into my home. Ethan exhaled. Jacob said he would post a guard for the week and file a brief note so the precinct would be ready if my parents returned. We thanked him, not for the first time and not for the last. After they left, Ethan made tea in thick white mugs and we carried them to the front steps. The lawn fell in a green sheet toward the street. The harbor was bright now, the water cut into paths by small boats. We sat without talking and watched the light move across the grass like a slow hand. I felt the break inside me settle. Not gone, not erased, but set like a bone that would bear weight. I told Ethan I wanted to take back my rooms one by one, to fill this house with the quiet of good work. Then we will do that, he said. We walked through each space and named it aloud. Kitchen, study, bedroom, porch. Saying the names felt like drawing lines on a map. The rest of the day was full of simple tasks. We folded the new towels Grace had brought. We wrote thank you notes to Barbara and Judge Hale and Daniel at the diner, and I put $40 cash in an envelope for Daniel with a card that said, "For your kind heart." I called the detective and confirmed the $5,000 reward, then answered 2 tips that went nowhere. One pawn shop in Long Beach, one in a strip mall near the freeway. Each call closed a door. Each no made room for the yes we had not found yet. That night, before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote one line. Home is the place where your no and your yes are both heard. When I turned off the light, the house held me the way a good coat holds warmth. The day had been hard and honest. It had cost me something. It had given me something back. I lay there and listened to the small sounds a house makes when it learns your name. The pipes settling, the fridge sighing, the wind testing the windows and letting them be. I thought of America spread wide beyond our street, of the people who had written to say keep going, of Europe watching our clip and cheering for a woman they would never meet. I thought of the little lemon tree, waiting by the back door for a hole and a promise. I closed my eyes and chose sleep the way I had chosen everything else today, clear, steady, and mine. We moved into the old brick house on Cliffview Road the week after the wedding. The place sat above the harbor like a watchman, with a deep porch and tall windows that faced the water. When the wind came in from the bay, the rooms smelled clean and new. I stood in the front room and touched the long wall where I wanted shelves. I pictured a solid oak table under the windows, a place to write and pay bills and drink tea. Harbor City, California, United States of America spread out below us, streets, roofs, and the thin silver line of the pier. I told myself this was the start of a life I would build with steady hands. I said it out loud, so the house could hear me. The porch needed real work. Boards were soft. Paint flaked off like dry leaves. We hired a local crew that Grace recommended and set a clear budget. The full restoration came to $50,000, which made me swallow hard. But the numbers were honest, and the work was clean: new beams, new railings, a firm floor that did not creak when you crossed it. We patched the roof and had the bricks repointed. We planted 2 lemon trees by the back steps. On the first night after the crew finished, Ethan and I sat on the rebuilt steps and counted the porch lights on the street, each one steady in the dark. Inside, I set up a simple desk, just a plank on 2 sawhorses, and began to write our story from the first line. From each paycheck at the public library, I put $300 into a jar labeled Girls Fund. The jar looked small, but it felt like a door. Life grew roots. On Saturdays, we walked to the farmer's market and bought bread and strawberries and a jar of honey that tasted like sunshine. Daniel from the diner once sent over 2 slices of pie and a paper box with "Congrats" written in marker. We tucked $20 into an envelope and dropped it off at the counter the next morning. Sophia helped me choose fabric for the study curtains and taught me how to hem by hand. Jacob reviewed the camera angles, then told us we could scale security down to a simple gate list. Barbara, the dress shop owner, came by with a houseplant and a card that said, "May this home hold joy." Judge Martin Hale mailed us a note on heavy paper, bright and kind, wishing us a long peace. Our days were quiet and good. I learned the way the harbor changed color at noon and how the floor warmed in a stripe where the sun crossed the window. Then, on a clear afternoon, the phone rang with a voice I did not know. "Ma'am," the man said, "I think your necklace is here." He named a pawn shop 2 neighborhoods away, a place near a bakery where we once bought sourdough with a crackled top. My heart began to race, but my voice stayed even. I asked him to hold it and told him we were on our way. Ethan took the car keys from the hook and nodded like a man setting out on a simple errand, though he knew it was not simple at all. In the car, I pressed my hand to my collarbone and felt the small empty space where the necklace should have rested. I told myself to breathe. The shop was narrow and honest. Glass cases ran along both walls, filled with watches, dull coins, and a few guitars with missing strings. The owner, a careful man named Patrick, slid a small tray across the counter. There it lay, bright even under hard lights, the chain I had saved for, the curve I knew by heart. The tag read $1,200. I lifted the clasp with 2 fingers and found the little scar by the hinge, a tiny scratch only I would notice. "This is mine," I said, and my voice shook, but only once. Patrick said a woman had sold it that morning, no name given. He had seen the reward notice and thought to call. He asked if I could prove it was mine. I told him about the scar and the extra link we added last year.
He checked.
He nodded. He smiled, small but real. Ethan paid on the spot. He counted out cash well over the price and refused the change. Patrick tried to hand back a few notes. Ethan closed his fingers around them and said, "Thank you for your good call." I put the necklace on there by the case. The metal settled where it belonged, like a key in a well-cut lock. For a long breath, I felt quiet all the way through. We filed the recovery report later that day and left the reward in place for the tip that led to the seller. We also wrote Patrick a thank you card and tucked in $100 because good acts should be met with good weight. When we walked out of the shop, the sun was high, the street bright. I touched the chain again and felt whole. People started asking how I could cut off my parents. They asked in letters and in person, sometimes with kind faces, sometimes with a tilt that felt like blame. I learned to answer without anger. I said family is not a license to burn your life. I said love without respect is a match near dry wood. I said I did not close the door for revenge. I closed it to live. Some days, the answer hurts. Some days it felt like standing on new legs that were still learning my weight. I kept a clean boundary and a soft heart. both at once. I kept going. When their names rose in my mind, I breathed and let the thought pass through like a cloud. Work at the library grew into a rhythm I loved. I set aside those $300 each pay period until the jar turned into a bank account with a real number on the screen. Before winter, I created a small scholarship, the Harbor Girls Fund, starting with $2,400. We gave 2 $1,000 awards and saved the rest to grow. The first winners were Ava, who wanted to study accounting, and Ruby, who planned to start a small baking business someday. We met their parents at a table near the large print books, and I watched the girls sign thank you notes with careful letters. Later, Ethan and I chose a women's shelter across town and pledged $40,000 for beds and a computer room. When the director, a strong woman named Margaret, showed us the new desks, she squeezed my hands and said, "This will change nights for a lot of people." I believed her. Our wedding clip still rolls on television now and then. Once, when I was shelving biographies, I heard my own voice rise from a screen in a corner of the room. I watched for a moment, then turned back to my cart. The story belongs to me, not the camera. On a different morning, a show in Europe aired our vow again with subtitles. Grace texted a photo of her TV and a line of hearts. I smiled and sent back a lemon emoji because our tree had finally given us 2 bright fruits, small suns in the kitchen bowl. I cut one and made lemonade with extra ice. I drank it on the porch we had saved and paid for, boards firm under my feet, railings smooth under my hand. At night, the house holds a good hush. Sometimes Ethan reads city reports at the oak table while I write a page about the day. Sometimes we sit on the steps and watch the harbor throw light on the sky. When people ask what I carried out of the fire, I say this: I kept my vow, I kept my home, I kept my name. I chose love. I chose peace. And when I could not find my way, I took one small step and then another until the ground felt sure again. In America, in this house, with a necklace at my throat and the lemon trees out back, I wake up ready to go on.